Hello everybody, this is L5 and today we have the playoffs of the JBA, and this is a Pokemon Draft League format, and so we had 6 weeks prior to this, I believe, and this is the playoffs, which I actually made it into, and so we'll be facing off against Coach Connor of the Columbus Cresselia, and yeah, so my team of, well, how many Pokemon do we have? I don't even know. I think it's like 11 Pokemon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I've got 11 Pokemon to choose from, and I can only bring 6. So ideally I want to be able to beat whatever he brings, any combination. One thing to keep in mind, he has brought Mega Sceptile, Mamoswine, Manaphy, and Cresselia, all 6 weeks prior to this. So I really wanted to prep well for those 4 in particular. So let's get right into the team. So first up we have Mega Aggron, nicknamed Agdon because I'm a Dawn. And so we got the Aggronite, of course, and we got this EV spread, which is pretty much the standard spread that I took off of Smogon, and I felt like it just did really well versus his team in general, so I just plopped it on there and called it a good day. So this is actually the same Aggron that I brought week 1 versus this guy. This is actually a rematch because we played week 1 and that was a really close game and I lost 1-0 due to an Ice Shard roll. I mean, the roll was really in his favor, but it was still a roll nonetheless. But anyways, I have Heavy Slam, Stealth Rock, Earthquake, and Roar. Heavy Slam is pretty much just for the Sylveon because this is pretty much my main Fairy Resist. And this is what I would be switching into Sylveon if I really needed to. And so Earthquake is so that Cobalion does not set up on me. And if you look at my team, Cobalion is looking like a pretty big threat. I'll put probably like his team right over here, over to the side, so you guys can tell what he has. And so I felt like Roar was definitely necessary for the Cresselia, because if that thing sets up too much, I don't really have anything to immediately threaten it that much, and it could be a real threat to my team. So Roar was definitely a good option there. I can also use it versus Manaphy if I want to, but generally I'm not going to be saying it on a Manaphy to begin with. Anyways, that wraps up Mega Aggron. Let's move on to the wall of the team, Aromatisse, however you want to pronounce it. I call this Trump's Wall because it's basically designed to wall the majority of his team. So I went for Wish Protect, Toxic, and Moonblast with the leftovers in this spread. What this allows me to do is never be 2-hit KO'd by a Scarf Mamoswine's Earthquake, which Scarf Mamoswine is a huge threat to this team, and I really wanted a solid answer to it. And then I went for enough special defense to comfortably take 2 Leaf Storms after rocks most of the time. That's kind of interesting, I guess, because Leaf Storm does, I believe, 60 max, and 60 plus half of it would be 90. So after leftovers, yeah, I do take 2 Leaf Storms versus a Mega Sceptile, which is pretty nice. So then, that's pretty much the whole thing. I have Toxic for the Cresselia, the Gligar, because he's going to have to run Defog, which means he's not going to have immunity. And also I have Moonblast for just the stab attack. Just going to do a lot of damage. Because this thing does have base 99 special attack, it will actually hurt a little bit. Unlike some defensive walls, they can't really hit back. But yeah, pretty solid Pokemon. I believe I've brought this every single week just because the fairy typing is so good. And now we have the Infernape. Now I decided to go for a Nasty Plot Infernape just because I felt like missing some Focus Blasts and I thought it would be really fun. So I have enough speed to outspeed Manaphy by 2 points, and I have max special attack and then some HP to make setting up a little bit easier. This thing does potentially speed tie with Cobalion because they're both 108 speed, but I figured there's no point outspeeding that because if I face that, I will just go for the guaranteed damage with a priority versus risking a speed tie and getting no damage off on the biggest threat. So Nasty Plot, Fire Blast does 2-hit KO Cress at +2. and this thing does a lot of damage to anything at +2. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this. This is like a sweeper, late game sweeper thing. And let's go into the green lantern. I really like this nickname. It's Roserade Choice Scarf with spikes to bluff that I'm not Choice Scarf. Because week 1 I actually brought Choice Scarf Roserade and it completely demolished his team. I think he got 4 kills or something like that. And it just did so well. And I felt like it was going to do really well again. So I have Leaf Storm just to Oko Manaphy, Sludge Bomb for Sylveon, and just a nice stab that doesn't miss. HP Fire for Cobalion. And yeah, so Spikes, just because I wanted Spikes, because Spikes are really cool, and he's probably going to be switching a bunch, so Spikes are great. And so I went for enough speed to outspeed Mega Sceptile, same spread as week 1, but you guys don't know about that, 60 HP, because I only need 290 speed to outspeed Mega Sceptile after the Choice Scarf, and then max special attack for power. And now we have my #1 favorite nickname, Epic Trap Battle, which is Dugtrio with the Irina Trap Focus Sash. This is basically just for Cobalion, because if we take away Dugtrio, Cobalion completely destroys this team, and it's just generally not a good time. So I have Earthquake, Memento, Toxic, and Reversal. I really didn't really need all of these moves. I really only needed Earthquake and Reversal, just because those are my main attacks. Memento, just in case I wanted a easy setup opportunity with Infernape, and then Toxic, maybe if I needed to Toxic Cresselia as a last-ditch thing, I can do that. I didn't go for any fancy EVs because I wanted to take as much damage as possible so that Reversal will do more damage, so I'm not going to invest in any defenses for that reason. Just went max speed because I do need Jolly to outspeed Tauros just in case he brought that. I figured it wasn't worth going Adamant. And also I think Adamant doesn't outspeed Cobalion. No, it doesn't, so I definitely needed Jolly there. Anyways, this is just a nice thing to revenge kill what I need it to. And then we have the last Pokemon, and this is a very interesting set. So we have Hydreigon with a Life Orb, levitated of course, and I have Draco, Crunch, Work Up, yeah, and Iron Tail. Now Work Up is something you would usually never see on Hydreigon, which is why I think it would catch him off guard. And so you might be thinking, why Crunch when I can just use Dark Pulse? I'm investing all this in special attack anyways. Well, if you look at my team, I don't really have too much for Cresselia outside of this and Toxicking it with Aromatisse. And maybe Dugtrio, but he can switch out because he has Levitate. Anyways, so say I set up a workup and then I'm in a situation where dropping a Draco will net me a kill. So obviously I'm going to take that opportunity and pick up my free kill, but then I will be -1, and if he has Calm Mind on his Cresselia, which he probably will, because why else would you use a Cresselia if you don't want a Calm Mind? Yeah, so I went for Crunch instead, which does 2-hit KO physically defensive Cresselia at +1, assuming I can get up the work up. Then Iron Tail to clean Oko any Sylveon that isn't max physically defensive at +1. And yeah, generally this thing can pretty much Oko anything on his team with a boost. So that's the reason behind this. The idea behind Work Up was it's basically a dollar store version of Calm Mind Latios. Just break everything with the boosted Draco plus coverage. And yeah, that'll be my team, and let's get right into the battle. Alright, so as you can see, my opponent has brought Cresselia, Mamoswine, and Manaphy, which are 3 that I definitely expected, but he does opt to not bring Mega Sceptile, which is pretty good because the other things are not quite as threatening as Mega Sceptile, and I guess he was suffering with like what Pokemon to bring. He only could bring 6, and he kind of needed all of these 6, I guess. But again, I was really expecting Mega Sceptile, and I'm kind of happy that he didn't bring that because I don't really have to deal with the huge speed on that thing. So he brought Cresselia, Mamoswine, Manaphy, as I said before, and he also brought Sylveon. Sylveon could be defensive or offensive. Either way, Aggron is a pretty good stop to that, and also I can scout with Aromatisse, which is basically the only thing it's going to switch in on. I can go for Protect, and if it goes for like a Psyshock trying to catch my Roserade, we know it's offensive, and we can just stay in and take the Psyshock because I am mixed defensive and it won't do that much. And he has Gligar because last time we played he got wrecked by Hazards, so he really needs a Defogger there. Then Cobalion for the setup, sweeping late game kind of thing, potentially. So yeah, let's get right into the battle. So I lead off with my Infernape, just because I thought he might lead off with Mamoswine or something along those lines. So I go into my Aggron on the Cresselia, which is always going to be my switch-in, so that it cannot set up, and I get the free Mega Evolution and I go for my Stealth Rocks. Now I'm not planning on keeping these rocks up for too long because Gligar is a pretty easy switch into my Aggron, so he can just defog that away. But what it does do is give me a free turn, so I can go out into whatever I want. I'm going to go out into a Aromatisse just to get off the Toxic on anything, because if you look at his team, the only thing that really takes a Toxic is Cobalion, and while Cobalion is pretty threatening, I can always just go out into Dugtrio on that thing and get rid of it. So he can't exactly go into Cobalion whenever he wants, and he goes for the Taunt, and I have Aromavale. Now, I didn't know I had Aromavale, he didn't know I had Aromavale. Basically the only one who knew was Jadehex, who was the guy who hosted the tournament, and it was kind of funny because we were both like, what? And I do get the Toxic for free. And so now this Gligar is on a timer. He can't really defog my Hazards whenever he wants now, because he will be taking passive damage. I go for the Wish, and I'm just going to go out into my Roserade, because it's very unlikely that he goes for the Psyshock, as Mega Aggron would be my primary switch, if you see. So he goes into Manaphy on my Roserade, and at this point I am Scarf. I could knock him out with a Leaf Storm, but I think it is very highly unlikely that he will stay in, so I go for the Spikes. Now what this does is it basically bluffs that I am not Scarf, because why would you run Spikes on a Scarf for Roserade, am I right? So he goes into his Cresselia, and I basically have my Aggron just for this. Take the Psyshock, does literally nothing, and I am going to set up my Stealth Rocks again. He does go into Gligar, or actually no, I do Roar that time, sorry, my bad. I get him out into Mamoswine, so not wanting to take a potential Life Orb Earthquake, which would do like 50% to me, I'm going to switch out into my Aromatisse, because I can take 2 Scarf Earthquakes, and Life Orb, I would know that he's not as much of a threat, even though I would have to sack. I can go out and revenge him with Infernape right after. And anyways, he goes for the defog to get rid of the Spikes. I'm just going to Wish, and I'm going to pass that into something for a free switch. Now I decide to go into Roserade, if I believe, or if I remember correctly, and he goes into Cobalion. And this is not a favorable matchup for me, so I'm going to switch out into my Infernape to take the Iron Head. It does only 20%, so this thing is not like Life Orb or anything. And I am going to go for the Nasty Plot, because he can't knock me out with any one hit. And now we have a +2 Infernape versus a Cresselia, and I do about 50% with a Fire Blast. However, it's not worth it, because he would just knock me out with a Psyshock, and keeping this low doesn't really help for anything in particular, so I'm just going to go out into my safe switch, which is Aggron, and I'm going to set up my Stealth Rocks here. And I'm going to Roar him out, because Calm Minding is no bueno, and I want to get that thing out of here ASAP. And I get him out into the Cobalion. So once again, not wanting to take a fighting type attack with my Aggron, I'm going to go out into a Aromatisse. At this point I just want to pivot around and try to get my Infernape in on an Iron Head rather than a close combat. And he goes for the Swords Dance, and at this point he is faster than me, because I'm not max speed timid, but he doesn't know that. So in his mind, does he risk the speed tie or not? And he's actually going to choose to not risk the speed tie. I went for Vacuum Wave anyways, because I just wanted damage on that thing, and if he killed me I can trap it with Dugtrio and it's gone. So he goes on into Cresselia, and I'm going to switch out into my Aggron, which is always the play versus Cresselia. He makes a nice double into Manaphy, and at this point he has 3 options. He can set up as I switch out into something that will get wrecked by a +3 Scald or Ice Beam or anything like that. he can go straight for the Scald, hope for a burn on my Aggron and get damage before I can potentially roar him out. Or he can Ice Beam, predicting the switch into my roserade, which in his mind is probably specially defensive because I did go for the spikes, and I've been using specially defensive roserade a lot this league, and it's just been doing a lot of work. So he might expect that from me. I just go for the play that covers two of those options, which is switch right into my roserade versus a Scald slash Tail Glow, as he hits me up with the Ice Beam, and that does 66%, basically confirming to him that I'm not specially defensive. However, I could be an offensive spiker, and no one expects a Scarf Roserade with spikes, so I'm just going to bop him there with the Leaf Storm. This is actually the second time that I've got him with a Scarf Roserade on the Manaphy, which is pretty funny. But that just puts me at a huge advantage because Manaphy was one of the bigger threats to my team, and now that it's gone, I can just do that. So now I go straight into Dugtrio on the Cobalion because basically whatever he does, it's not going to be enough, and I'm going to trap him and kill him. If he went for the Magnet Rise in this turn, I would just continuously wait until he attacks me. He can get +6, it doesn't matter, and I would go down to 1%, and I would be able to kill with Reversal. So I do go into this and eat up a close combat, activate my Sash, and I could go for Earthquake, but I'm just going to be flashy and show off the Reversal because why not? Even if he has Rocky Helmet, which is very unlikely, that just gives me a free switch. And Dugtrio is not going to be doing anything else in this game anyways, so I figured why not? It's fun. So he goes into his Mamoswine now. I don't know his set at the moment, so he goes for the Earthquake, revealing that he is in fact Choice Scarf. And so that means I can go into Hydreigon and basically get a free setup with Workup. Now, he's not expecting the Workup, obviously. He goes into his Sylveon just to cover for the potential Draco Meteor, and then if I didn't Workup, he would live the Iron Tail with like 10% if he's offensive, or he would only take like 50% if he's physically defensive. But at this point, I see there's no leftovers, and so I can go for the Iron Head or Iron Tail pretty safely, and I catch the Gligar on the switch, does 24%, and if he's fully physically defensive, that is a high roll, and it means Crunch is not a guaranteed kill. So I'm basically forced to drop a Draco here, just to knock out this Gligar, and that puts me in the lead by 5-3, and he still has to deal with this massive threat. So now he goes into his Mamoswine, and knowing he's probably not going to go for the Earthquake and just give me more kills, I'm just going to go for my Aggron switch as he catches me with the Earthquake. And at this point, I could go straight back into Hydreigon, but what if he doubles out into, say, Sylveon or something, and he's actually defensive with no lefties? Then he completely KOs my Hydreigon because it's unboosted and doesn't kill, and then I lose my main Cresselia killer. So I go into my Aromatisse, and he goes for the Earthquake, and I can just throw up a Wish and protect and get all my health back. He can't really break this thing with the Mamoswine. So I go for the Wish, and I have no reason not to protect here. I get to scout what move he is. Judging from the no leftovers, he's probably Choice Specs, and so he goes for the Hidden Power here, basically confirming that he's Choice Specs, trying to catch my Aggron on the switch. And at this point, I can just go for, I believe, another Wish, because I know he's going to switch out probably into Mamoswine because Cresselia doesn't beat this. And neither does Mamoswine, but it's better than getting Toxic and losing your win condition Cresselia. So now I Moonblast, put him in range of rocks, and at this point I'm just Wish protecting because I don't want him to double out on my Hydreigon switch because that could be the only troubling thing at this point. But now I'm Wish protecting and I see he's just gonna Earthquake over and over again, so I'm just going to switch out into my Hydreigon, get the free setup opportunity on the Scarf Earthquake, and at this point there's nothing he can really do outside of dodging the Iron Tail. So I do get off the Workup, and at this point Iron Tail has not the best accuracy, so I was trying to think, is there something I can do where I don't have to risk this? And if I switch out into, say, my Aggron on the Hyper Voice, I can go for the Heavy Slam and knock him out, but he can also switch out Sack or he can sack this, his Sylveon, then sack his Mamo, and then start setting up with Cress. And if my Aromatisse like misses some Toxics, or I just let him set up too much and he can knock me out, it's just not that good. So I go for the Iron Tail and I just connect, and that's going to be the game because +1 Crunch is going to do a hell of a lot to this Cresselia, enough where he cannot recover it off, and does 67%. He's going to knock me out with a Moonblast, but at this point Scarf Roserade has it in the bag with the Sludge Bomb, and the Mamoswine does die to rocks, and that's going to be the good game. Green Plantern ending off with a solid Sludge Bomb, and that's going to be the end of the playoffs semifinals. So now I'm in the finals of this, and I have to face off against, I think it's Coach Kyle. I don't remember. I think it's the Westchester Weaviles. I'm not completely sure about that, but he has a really strong team at this point. He has Fire, Water, Grass core with Mega Venusaur, Rotom, and Victini with a Scolipede pass. It's just a rough matchup, and I'm just going to have to really prep well for that. I played him twice so far this season. I 6-0'd him the first time, then he 5-0'd me, so will I get my revenge for the second time, or will he get me again? I don't know. So we'll find out next time, and that'll be all. See you in the finals.